Hey guys, back to another interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Jhin supplementary guide. We're going to be taking a look at Bloodthirster on Jhin. Now obviously Bloodthirster is not really the best build on Jhin in my opinion. I think going for early lethality is a lot more helpful. So you can look at the top builds. Basically I can see all of those collectors coming in. We have a Stormrazor build. We've covered those already on the channel. But I thought of trying the old school Bloodthirster build. Like before Collector was even released in Wild Rift, Bloodthirster on Jhin first item was very popular. Definitely I think lethality is better right now, but let's just take a look at it. So first up, we're going to start with the Gluttonous Greaves as usual for the AD and the Omnivamp, but another option you could go for is actually going for lethality boots, right? I do believe I go for that in the game, because you get the early 10 armor pen, which is very helpful for your laning, and you already get physical vamp from Bloodthirster, right? So it's not very essential to get the Gluttonous Greaves, right? So of course next item, Bloodthirster, gives you physical vamp as I mentioned, gives you a ton of AD, just a really great stat stick item. Then of course you have Magnetic Blaster, gives you that additional range and allows you to get off that one high damage auto onto an enemy champion. Also gives you better wave clear. Of course, IE for the high AD as well as the increased crit damage. You can swap the items around like this as well. You can go for IE as a second item like this as well if you prefer. And then you have, of course, more reminder for the armor pen and grievous wounds, and a defensive item as the last item, something like a GA, like a Maw, or something like that. Right. So for the runes, of course, it's gonna be fleet footwork on Jhin, gives you the movement speed, which Jhin really benefits from, the healing as well as the bonus attack speed is going to get converted into AD, so just a very helpful rune for Jhin. Right, then for the first rune, it's really a toss-up. Like all three of these could be an option, right? Brutal kind of sucks because your auto attack so slow. Gathering Storm kind of sucks because your AD. Triumph kind of sucks because it really only procs when you get kills, and sometimes the other two gives more value. So it's really just a toss-up between the three of which one you want to go. Giant Slayer, of course, counter the tanks, and Bloodline here just for more healing, because if you go for Alacrity, it's going to get converted into AD, and it's not a very efficient conversion, so I think that going for Bloodline is better. Defensive capabilities with the bone plating, as well as going for flash when summon a spell, and cleanse if there's CC. Otherwise, Ghost is going to be really good. Bearer or Exhaust if you need it. But with all that said, now let's move on to taking a look at the gameplay. Okay, so now let's take a look at the gameplay of Jhin with the Bloodthirster build, of course. Right, so as I mentioned, I generally think that the lethality build is better, and especially in this particular game, the enemies are generally relatively squishy. Of course, the Jax and the Set aren't really, but the rest of the team are kind of squishy, so lethality would have definitely benefited quite a bit here. But I, of course, wanted to test out the old Bloodthirster build. I put in a couple of games on it, so this is not the first game I'm playing with the Bloodthirster build. I played quite a number of games with it, and I still think it works very well, right? But it doesn't really allow you to snowball, because unlike the Collector build, I think Collector gives you a lot of early game damage, and Jhin, one of his greatest strengths is his early game damage, and you can kind of take advantage of that with Collector and snowball the game off of that. And then once you get the snowball going, it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows from there, right? But when you go for this Bloodthirster build, I think it's more consistent overall. In terms of if you're behind, I think this Bloodthirster build works out pretty well. Aside from the fact that it's expensive, it does of course give you more stats, and of course it gives you that lifesteal, that healing as well, which is of course always going to be helpful. But yeah, it's just a little bit more consistent. But I don't think you're playing Jhin for the consistency. I think you're going to play him for that burst damage, and just with that one-shot potential. Going for the burst build, I think is a lot more kind of logical, right? That's why that's his kind of default build. And you also have the energized build, which also kind of does a similar thing, but scales a little bit better than the Collector build. Or similarly actually to the Collector build. But yeah, obviously the best scaling build is this Bloodthirster build, because Bloodthirster of course is a great late game item as much as it is an early game item, unlike the other builds that I just mentioned. So as you can see here in lane, we are playing with a Morgana that is a kind of okay support, I guess. You can always follow up her CC, and she can follow up yours as well if you hit it. But of course, I generally believe Jhin likes to play a lot more with engagers, because they can kind of force fights in the early game and allow you to maybe get kills in the laning phase and then snowball off of those kills. Of course, Jhin never really wants pure enchanters like Yuumi, like Lulu, maybe even Melio. He doesn't really benefit a lot from champions like that since he doesn't really gain any attack speed, which means that of course the attack speed that he gains will be converted into attack damage, which is helpful, but at the same time it's kind of not because the conversion is not very good, so he doesn't really benefit as much as what a normal ADC would, right? So I would prefer playing with tanks, or if not, the more protective enchantments like Janna, for example, instead of something like the Lulu. Now here, the enemy team is of course chasing me down. Most important thing is I dodge the Senna route, because if I got hit by that, it will mean I get hit by Jinx traps, which means that probably I would have to cleanse and maybe even flash away, if that is the case. So in this case, we are able to just walk away without having to expend our summoner spells. Now here, not too much action is happening. You have to consider that Senna is a very strong laning champion, and Jinx is also not too bad herself. I wouldn't describe Jinx as a strong laning champion, but she does of course have those long range rockets to farm and poke with. So we're not, making a tremendous amount of progress here. Here we get the combo down, the Morgana route into the Jhin route, and then I force shot the Jinx to get a pretty decent chunk onto her, but she's just gonna pick up the fruit and kind of heal back up to almost full health. But we did force them to expend the fruit though, so it's not like it was bad or anything. It was definitely a good occurrence. So here root now goes down onto the Senna, so we're gonna kind of try to do the same thing, except that we see Jax show up, which means that we have to back off, because obviously Jax is coming in for a gank if we continue any further. In fact, he could have even come even if we didn't continue any further, but he just chose not to, because obviously his bot lane was kind of getting pummeled a little bit. Here we finish off the minion wave. We're pretty low on mana, so we probably want to either reset or take fruit, so we're going to be taking the fruit. Morgana taking a little bit of damage in the meanwhile. Something very important is that if you're like ADC slash support, if someone is going to go take the fruit or go for a roam, or basically just not be in the same screen as you, you always want to play a bit safer and back off, right? There's no reason for you to take any free poke or risk dying, for example. So here we get the root onto Senna. Senna is now invis, so we can't exactly hit her unless we get really close. A fight is breaking out, though Amumu is going in onto Akali. Akali ults through, Amumu gets the kill onto her, and then goes onto the Jinx. Jinx running straight into Ryze here. Ryze gets the root down, Jinx is running away. I have 0 mana here. I wanted to ult, but I have 0 mana here. I'm just trying to get the wave in and then reset. But the issue is that I really don't have mana to clear the wave. I'm just using spells as they come off of mana cooldown, I guess, as you want to call it. But here we finally are able to shove in the entire wave. Of course, the mana regen from Fleet Footwork here is coming in very, very handy as well, more so than a regular champion. Right, so here we get a really decent reset, getting all of the components for the Bloodthirster, and we of course also previously bought Lethality boots already, which I didn't explicitly mention, but we do have that in the pocket. Now, Senna has armor boots and has gone for a tier, so I'm not quite sure what kind of build she's going for. She's not building the typical first item for a carry build or for a tank build. Tier seems to suggest mana immune, but she does have tank boots, which is also common when you go for a more aggressive build. Because Senna is incredibly squishy. Now, Senna and Jinx have roamed to the mid lane for a fight, right? So here we have two options, right? Match their roam or push. Right now, my logic is pushing is going to be way better, because by the time we reach there, our team is likely to have died, which is indeed the case, right? Like, if we were walking, by the time our teammates died, we would only be halfway up the river. So there's no point in walking there. It's going to be a complete waste of time. So instead, we should be trying to get as many plates as we can, which we got almost all of them, except getting the actual tower itself. And here Senna gets rooted. The black shield comes on before the Senna root actually connects, but I actually cleanse anyway, so I should have, I guess, because I should have trusted the Morgana to put the shield on me instead of wasting a summoner spell. But yeah, we did try to run down the Senna, but not very successfully. Off of the goal from the tower plates, though, we will be able to actually pick up the Bloodthirster, so that's of course going to be the first major spike. Now, Jinx has a BF sword in her inventory, which suggests she's either going for Terminus or IE as a first item, which is both of which are, yeah, she has completed her IE as a first item, which is a really strange first item. Yeah, IE as a first item is not really a thing here, but Yeah, a really strange build. Like it's very expensive and it doesn't really give you a lot as a first item. But yeah. So here Jinx gets rooted, we follow up a little bit, and we are coming in with the 4-shot flash forward. For the 4th shot, Morgana shield immunes me from the CC. We get the easy kill onto the Jinx. And we're putting down a little bit of vision using our traps here, and another one with the ward to ensure we cannot really get ganked. Akali, we can see from that from the vision that we placed down that she is now on the way here. So we are very aware that she is right there, which is why I'm backing off. Morgana doesn't really get the same message though. She is aggressive, going for the root onto the Akali, but I feel there's no point because we have no kill pressure onto the Akali anyway, so there's really no point in doing that. Now Akali's still hovering around the area. We kind of stupidly get rooted by the minions. And here we finally get the first tower of the game. Akali now coming in though. Here we get rooted down a little bit. We root the Akali ourselves. Akali now 1 HP. We finish her off. I think she went in way too early there. Needed to wait an extra second for her team to kind of catch up to her before she could make a reckless play like that. Now I'm looking to reset here with the wave crashing at the enemy side of the map. I don't really want to overextend for it. Jinx is, speaking of overextended, Jinx is supremely overextended, does die for it. And now we're going back to bot lane to push out the lane. So here we grab the previous wave that we actually missed no minions from. Really pro W there, hitting only 1 minion. And we clear the next wave, and now we are free to roam. So now that we've pushed out the bot lane, we're going to roam over to the mid lane. Now the only kind of mini issue here is that Ryze is resetting and walking towards the mid lane. Now Ryze should be walking to the bot lane to kind of cover the bot lane. As we are already farming the mid lane, and he's basically going to get nothing by the time he reaches here, right? So you can see he basically comes here and he has nothing much to really do. He's just walking around trying to find a purpose in life, and he decides to go top to catch that top wave that's pushing in from the set. But that's pretty dangerous because you can see Jax is actually farming our blue buff. We saw that on a brief second on the minimap. So there is always a possibility that Jax comes for him. In fact, it's Akali and Jinx, and the whole team is collapsing onto him, and he dies. And the dragon is coming up though. So here what I'm doing, since we still have a 5 seconds before the dragon spawns, I'm going to quickly clear out this wave, get the push. And here I'm actually greeting for this tower because I think this tower is way more valuable than the dragon itself. So I'm going to pick up the tower and then rotate over to the dragon, right? Getting mid lane tower opens up the map a lot for your team, and that's definitely better than any dragon that you could get. So I'm prioritizing the mid lane tower. We grab that, and then enemy team obviously comes to contest way too late. And here the next wave of bot is here. I'm gonna quickly clear out this wave. And here I can see my team roaming down here. So I'm trying to keep Senna interested, right? To give my team an opportunity to go for it. Senna flashes away. And now Jinx is getting a reset and coming towards us, right? And as is Akali, right? So now we're in a little bit of a sticky situation. We don't want to play overly aggressive and get caught out overextended. So here, blind root over the wall from Morgana, catches out the Senna. Senna is in deep trouble, ults for the shield. We are able to finish her off. And she does indeed have a mana mune as her first item. And she has the steel-plated locket as her boots. So here set full stacked W, but we are able to sidestep the mill. Finishing up the set, Akali is now coming in. We have 2 shots left in the chamber. 4th shot until Akali finishes her off, and we're able to barely survive. Now here, beautiful stasis from Morgana to prevent Jinx from getting the reset. If Jinx got the reset there, needless to say, I would have died. Poor camera panning by me there. My bad. Sorry about that. Didn't really see what happened there. But yeah, if Jinx had got that kill onto the Morgana, she would have reset and killed me. So if Morgana did not pop the stasis there, we both would have died, right? But instead, I end up surviving. Morgana eventually does die, but not to the Jinx. And I think overall the situation is pretty positive. So here now I'm 5-0 and 3. 900 gold away from my IE. So generally it's like when I'm on IE, like when I'm looking for IE, I'm gonna just try to farm whatever and wherever I can, right? So here you can see the waves are all really overextended. I can't really get any easy farm anywhere. So I'm going to go get jungle camps instead because I don't want to overextend for waves, right? And Amumu's on the opposite side of the map. He's not going to be farming these camps anytime soon. So here I'm just farming the red buff, farming the Krugs, farming the Raptors. Now I'm really close to getting IE at this point. I really need to find just a little bit more farm. Looking to mid lane, because mid lane is going to be rolling in here. I'm trying to ping that I need IE so that Ryze doesn't try to steal the minions. Now, obviously, Ryze doesn't really care. From what I noticed, most people don't particularly care when you're on coming to a spike. But here, instead of going back for IE, we're forced to fight here because our team gets into a pretty huge fight, and we cannot really afford to ditch our team. Now, just ulting in the back line and sniping out the Jinx, and get the root onto the, I believe that is the, no, that's not the Sen, that's the Senna. And yeah, and Senna goes down as well. Now, obviously, at this point, we have more than enough gold to get IE because we just got a kill and an assist. But, of course, we don't want to waste the opportunity we have here, and we're going to crack open the mid lane inhibitor. Like so. And afterwards, we can now get a reset and get IE. Huge bot wave is stacking up. The Mordekaiser is going to catch that one. And I'm just going to recall and pick up my IE. We might even have enough for an enchant or half of another item. So yeah, IE completed here. And we're going to get the Executioner's Calling just to cut healing. Really important for champions like the Jax. And of course, Senna has healing for her entire team. So anti-heal here is relatively important. So now here you can see I'm pinging for Baron, and the reason is we can see 5 members of the enemy team on opposite side of the map. If Amumu came, we could have just done Baron, and the enemy team here would have got a kill on Morgana, but they probably would have lost the Baron, right? So I think this is a very poor macro play from my team. They just AFK walk towards wherever they see a fight. We could have easily gotten a free Baron here, but instead what happens is Mordekaiser dies, Morgana dies, and now we are 3v5, and the enemy team is now probably going to go for Baron, right? Now, the only kind of redeeming factor is you can see the mid wave is pushing in, so if no one responds in the mid wave, they're going to lose the game. So they are forced to send one person back to defend, which now makes it a 3v4, and obviously we are kind of ahead enough, as in my team is kind of ahead enough to kind of win this situation, so we get 2 kills back, and that kind of saves the situation, right? But this was a near disaster of a situation. You can see how macro plays, of course, are very important. We could have easily gotten a free Baron, but instead we decide to go for this weird play. Now here I nearly get one shot by Akali, and I barely survive. Now I'm gonna have to go for some fruit or recall. So I pick up the fruit. I'm gonna just reset anyway because I'm a little bit too low. Only Senna is really alive though, so my team should be able to get Baron like for free. I can reset, get items, and then head over to the dragon because I'm expecting my team to get Baron and then reset. So this gives me time to secure red buff and then rotate over to the next objective, which is the dragon. However, in reality, although 2 of my teammates reset, the other 2 do not, which is a little bit desynced, I guess you could say. Generally, as a team, you should either reset altogether or not. So anyways, here I'm just gonna go for the dragon. Enemy ward expires. I mean, one of the worst things on Jhin is trying to clear enemy wards because your attack speed is so slow. It takes you 3 out of 4 bullets of your clip to actually kill the ward, and that is just frustrating. So here I'm gonna secure the dragon, and at this point we didn't even need the dragon. My team is already pushing into the base to end the game. So here I'm just going to push the side here just in case my team somehow doesn't end the game. We still have another wave we can play on, which at this moment in time my team is not actually ending the game yet. You can see I'm actually just focusing minions and pushing the wave in instead of DPSing anybody. So here I'm going to 4-shot the tower, get myself in range. My help isn't even needed, so I'm just going to continue finish off the tower. And here we're trying to get the rune on Senna so we could get a last minute kill. The game is basically won at this point. Obviously my team at this point is just playing for kills. I'm trying to kill the Senna before we end the game. There goes the Senna. Yeah, and there we have it. So I'm going to leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.